episode. Well, I say exciting. It may not be exciting to anyone except us, of course. Exciting episode of SalesTV Americas, and it's lovely to be here. It's always an interesting debate, this, isn't it? Always interesting to see what people in the audience think and how they're feeling about things.
Because that's the most important thing, what the audience thinks, not what we think.
It's the only thing that matters, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in the EMEA version of this morning, we kicked off with saying that we were going to talk about three things. We were going to talk about, is there a role for player managers in sales? Is that still a thing? So by player managers, we mean people that are both number carrying salespeople and sales leaders. Sales in startups, how different is it? You know, when we think about sales, we often think about large organizations that have very structured sales orgs within them. And in startups, it can be very different to that. And then lastly, if you use sales speak, do people ignore you? And I'm sure we've all got views on all of those things.
Yes.
So let's kick off. I'm just checking to see we are live, or we certainly seem to be, which is good.
Yes, we are live.
So we are. So who wants to kick off? Let's start with that. Is sales speak ignored?
Yeah.
Go on. Give us an example of sales speak, if you would.
Well, there are phrases that salespeople use, and we're all guilty of this. But things like this will offer you competitive advantage, or failing to do this, as you said this morning, Alex, failing to do this, and you're leaving money on the table. These things that are normal phrases for salespeople to roll out, are they actually just noise? Do they move a wedge in between the salesperson and the purchaser? Because I know that when I'm on the receiving end of this, I often feel that it's like somebody's reading a script to me. They've got all of these well polished phrases that they roll out, but they don't believe them, and I certainly don't believe them. And I wonder if they actually have any meaning anymore,
or if they believe them, which it's quite possible the salesperson can believe them. They just don't understand the detail behind it or the context. So when challenged by the customer, there's a risk that the salesperson can't answer the question or provide the detail necessary to build confidence in the buyer's mind. And that's where the breakdown of trust comes in.
Back to Adam's point, so often it is right out of a script. And I think the reason that we tire from these things is because we hear them ad nauseum. But even some of these, if you hear it just for the first time, it feels, and I'm going to use this term, and it will probably come across to many as pejorative, it feels salesy.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to be sold. What do we like to do?
We like to buy.
We like to buy, but we don't want to be sold to. That in and of itself is a contrast, a conflict that provides friction in the process. So if you're exacerbating that difference by using what is recognized as sales speak, I have to believe that it's detracting from the process, not helping.
And I think the idea of the context is also a really interesting thing, because I think often we learn these phrases, but we don't learn what they actually mean. And actually, in the SalesTV this morning for EMEA, we had a guest, and it was really interesting. The guest said there are three types of intelligence. There's IQ, which we all know. There's EQ, which we all know these days, and there's CQ, commercial intelligence. And he said that salespeople, they need to have all three to be effective in sales these days. They need to be clever. They need to be able to describe complex concepts and understand those concepts. They need to have that emotional intelligence. They need to be able to understand where the buyer is at and steer them. They need to be able to empathize with those people. They need to be able to forge some sort of bond with those people. But lastly, they need to have this curiosity about how commerce and how business actually works. Because if you don't understand what real value does my product, solution, service, what does it do for your business, then these days you're never going to be able to successfully sell it. Features and benefits is long time ago. Now we need to be talking about a much more holistic view, don't we? This is how this can help you. This is how this can solve your problems.
Yeah, and I think that they're table stakes today. I don't know if I'm using another one of those terms there. But,
you are.
that should, what you're describing there, Adam, should be table stakes, should be the baseline. And I think there are many, not just many salespeople, but many organizations that are unable to really quantify the value that they deliver to their customers. Therefore, they're unable to empower their sales team to be able to, provide that education often required to the customer, for the customer. But I think nowadays, before you even get there, you've got to be more human. I think I had an interesting conversation with someone today who is a consultant, both on the sales side, but also on the procurement side. And, he said to me today, what salespeople don't realize is we're not ready to buy until our boss tells us we need to buy something. So yeah. I'm only gonna contact a salesperson if I think that he or she has what I need. And we then started talking about the importance of building rapport and relationships so that when the time is right, then they'll reach out to you.
So I want to pick up on what you said there, Adam, regarding CQ. But before I do that, I wanted to bring in some of the comments. Bob Britton was saying, I've been doing this so long, when I get prospected, I can often tell what methodology the seller is trained on based on what they say. Absolutely. So part of this, I think,
you feel that you're that's awful. You feel that you're being processed, don't you?
But we're so close to it. We're in this field. I think we're attuned to it a little bit better. I don't think my mom, for example, could tell you, oh, that was definitely a challenger line. She might be able to feel when she's being sold to, but not necessarily, And he follows up with buzzword bingo.
Yeah.
But to your point, Adam, about the CQ, when you first said commercial, my mind went instantly to the salesperson needs to understand the commercial value for the company they're representing. And it was only as you further explained it that was exactly opposite what was meant by that. It's understanding the commercial value for the prospect, the company who may buy it. And in that regard, I think that's closer to what Alex was saying in that you've got to get closer to the prospects. They're only going to buy when their boss says they can buy. So what is that line in between immediate commercial intent and getting closer? Does that fall under EQ, or is there something more to it?
Well, I think there is more to it. The best salespeople are people that don't sell, aren't they? Or right. The people that are the person that they're talking to don't sell. And increasingly, and again, the conversation this morning shifted from beginning here to talking about the fundamental issues that now exist within sales cultures within organizations, and the fact that very often, organizations pay lip service to forming a relationship with the client, relationship-based selling. They pay lip service to understanding the customer needs. They pay lip service to all of these different things about, it's better that we should think about lifetime customer value rather than short-term gain from a customer spending money with us. But the poor salesperson is being screwed from above. The ratchet is being wound up on them, more and more pressure to deliver more and more revenue in less and less time. And, they're in this situation where they have to manage. They want to do the right thing. Nobody gets into sales to deliberately screw people over. Nobody does. Everybody wants to go and do the right thing. But the choice is, I've got to do the right thing by my family first. So I have to sell something. So actually, the most important thing is you're going to buy today, Rob. The second most important thing is you're going to buy something that you need. The things like the fact that it's some way down the road that you're going to get benefit from this, or that it's a long-term, you'd be better off doing A, B, or C, or Ben, the guest this morning, one of the things that he said is that salespeople need to be empowered to say, actually, I don't think we're the right people to deliver this service to you. And that's absolutely right. In an ideal world, that's a utopian view of how sales should be, full of honourable people, with their swords and their shields all polished up to within an inch of their life, like knights in shining armour. But the reality of the situation is very different from that, isn't it? The reality is that you're my customer. I'm not going to let a competitor in, because if I let a competitor in, you might never come back to me again. You might form a great relationship with that competitor. And even if it's best for you, it's worst for me. So I'm going to sell you something. I'm going to sell you something now. Hopefully it will be something that you'll get some value out of, but I'm going to get my commission check. Or not my commission check, I'm going to retain my job.
Right.
Or I'm going to get my boss off my back that's currently asking for deal reviews on a weekly basis for all of the things that I forecasted. And I can't be more accurate with my forecast because, as you said, you're only going to buy when your boss tells you can buy. So the fact I'm interfacing with you and you said, it's really urgent for us. Well, that's great. It's really urgent for you. But your idea of urgent and mine are entirely different things, given that you're the buyer and I'm the seller.
There was something said in relation to when the salesperson isn't performing. I mean, all things being equal, when the salesperson isn't performing, it's not sales' fault, it's the business's fault. And, I think, what it feels like is we've gone through a decade of, growth. 2010, 2020, there was various sales methodologies. It felt like businesses were on more of a growth curve. We hit 2020 and obviously we've had the pandemic. And in the last 2 years, we've had almost 400,000 layoffs in tech across 1,000 businesses. And all of a sudden, it's bloody hard. There is no pipeline. Close rates are declining. And instead of businesses looking inward and saying, and this is my opinion, right? Instead of businesses looking inward and saying, right, what do we need to fix? They're saying it's sales' fault.
Yeah.
It's his fault. It's her fault. Let's, get rid of them.
Yeah. And it was one of the people in the comments this morning, and they said that they saw a job advert on LinkedIn, which is absolutely the very worst of sales. And the job advert said, "Can you sell ice to Eskimos? If so, we want to hear from you." Now, it's fundamentally bad. So the best sales trainer in the world, bar none, is a guy called Phil M. Jones. He's written a couple of books. One of them is called Exactly What to Say, and one of them is called Exactly What to Do. And it's like a guide that helps salespeople get going in the sales industry. It says, at this point, you might want to say something like this. And it's based entirely on, he completely retrained the sales force of a big furniture supplier in the UK, for example. And he had loads and loads, hundreds, thousands of different touch points. And he was able to say that if you say, people usually like is that's a great, because people look at it and they go, oh, well, if people usually like it, that'd be people just like me, therefore that's probably a good choice for me. The simple things like that. And he referred to salespeople as professional mind maker uppers. So your job is to help somebody make up their mind that they should go with you. It's not about selling them something they don't want. It's about helping to push them over the line to convince them that this is a good decision, if it genuinely is a good decision. And that's what sales should be. If this is not the right product for you, I should have the latitude to be able to say this is not the right thing for you to be doing. If it is the right thing for you to be doing, my job is to shepherd you to a place where you're happy to buy it.
Yeah.
But the problem is we only get half of that at best.
Yeah, of course we do.
We get I'm going to help you make the decision to buy. I am never going to advise you not to buy.
No.
That's how the sales training goes. Let's talk about overcoming objections. Let's talk about the soft close. Let's talk about all of the things that manipulate the result to the end that you want. Not let's talk about what is the right end.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. I want to bring up what Bob Britton added. Here's an easy test I do to find out if a company is customer centric. Have your sellers list their top 5 clients. The vast majority of the time, they'll give you a company name or a title. Rarely will they tell you a person's name.
Mm.
Yeah. And that is a very damning indictment, isn't it? And, I think that one of the really interesting things that we had this morning was that the guest was a guy called Ben Dorks, who is chief executive of a very successful software company that's growing incredibly. Yeah, he began in sales. He moved into sales leadership. He moved into chief revenue posts. His company was acquired into a VC and investment funded group, and he's now chief executive of that group. But he never forgets what he did at the beginning, and he, excuse me, he said that what the salespeople need is the freedom to be able to not make the sale if it's not the right thing to do. Obviously, they have a number to make, but this is absolutely about giving them guidance, ensuring that they have a high enough basic that they can exist on that, ensuring that they are not coin operated, that they are trying to do the best thing possible for the client at all times in order to forge a proper long-term relationship within the client. And I said to him that I speak to a lot of different businesses. That's never the case in the businesses that I speak to. Absolutely, the ratchet is being tightened on the salespeople. The salespeople are under pressure. They have no pipeline. And this seems to be a universal problem. And he said, well, it isn't a universal problem here. And the reason it isn't is that, we structure the business around doing the right things. And one of the things that we bottomed out in this morning's session was that the problem is endemic in organizations. Leadership who are focused purely on the numbers, who set a target and say that's what you're going to have to go and do, rather than, he said, we take from sales manager upwards, we take everybody's view of whether the target that's being set is a realistic target. And if it isn't, what is a realistic target? And if there's too much apart from these two things, then, we have to find some way of bridging the gap between them. And he said, interestingly, for his business, he said, we went through that process this last year. And we went from the sales manager to the sales directors, to the VPs of sales, to the CRO. And we collated all of their views and put that together to say, this is what we think we can sell. And then they went to the board, and the CFO said, how much do we need to sell to meet our growth objectives? And they were $600,000 apart. He said, in my business, that's a rounding error. So the thing that's really interesting is that the sales function within the business were realistic about what they could sell. And what's interesting is the board were realistic about what they could sell as well. So there was not a huge disparity between the two. And for that reason, most people within his organization make their number. You know, they're constantly growing. The expectation is this is the growth that we're going to achieve by doing the same stuff we're doing already. And then we're going to add a little bit of extra veneer on top of that through new projects and new ideas, which will further boost the growth. And that's how we're going to meet our growth objectives. And everyone in the company is going, yeah, not a problem. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's a completely different story to most of the people that I speak to.
Yeah. And he had a sales academy.
Yeah, he was really investing in his sales team, wasn't he? And not just the people that were front facing, but he was teaching the managers how to manage, the VPs how to inspire, and the salespeople how to sell. And because of that, he's got a well-oiled machine, and people are not spending their entire life being micromanaged or looking over their shoulder waiting to be fired.
Yeah.
Adam, you had talked about growth, and it just reminded me, I've been listening to a new audiobook, or at least new to me, Simon Sinek's The Infinite Game. And all of the things that we're talking about here are, you know, these sales quotas and so on. They are with finite mentality that we talk about them. Whereas the infinite game is more like Bob's comment, the Macy's methodology from Miracle on 34th Street. If you don't have what the customer wants or needs, nowhere to send them, you'll have just gained a customer for life. We don't play for the infinite game. We don't play for the customer for life. We play for the customer for now, because the quarter ends at the end of the month and the number is due. We don't build from the bottom up, typically. That this morning's conversation, the exception to the rule. We build from the bottom down, or from the top down, and we build from, this is the growth that we want, or frankly, we need to hit to satisfy our investors, and then everything trickles down from that. But nobody looks at that growth number, or that number that we need to hit, and starts with, is that even realistic?
And it's not an either or, right? So I do feel it's a combination. So still having the excitement and the passion and the winning mentality to close that deal this quarter, but ensuring that that's not everything. It's a combination of, well, we're gonna invest in our people to teach them how to build relationships, deep and meaningful relationships over time, as well as identify where there's that opportunity to close a deal quickly, and when it's not the right time to close a deal quickly, which I think is what most salespeople, I know I'm speaking generally, what most salespeople are under pressure to do. Oh, I've had a conversation with somebody. Yep, that's in the pipeline. Oh, when are you going to close them? Yeah, I reckon 3 months, 6 months most. And then you get into this vicious cycle of, you know, unreal pipeline and lengthy forecasting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big thing, isn't it? You know, it's like further to your point at the beginning, Rob, which was you're only going to buy when your boss tells you that you can buy. So, you know, Alex and I are having a conversation. I very much want to sell Alex something. I think we have the right product. I think Alex wants to buy it from us. He isn't going to be ready to buy it till next year. So my boss says to me, what can you do to bring it forward? Well, I can't do anything to bring it forward because he's not going to be ready to buy it. Well, you must be able to do something to bring it forward. Only just bring it forward 1 quarter if you can. That would help enormously. But he's not ready to buy. And you then get into this abusive relationship with the customer, which either impacts on your credibility as an organization or your credibility as an individual or the relationship. You know, so what can I do to make you buy this quarter, Alex?
Yeah,
I can take 20%. I can offer you 20% discount if you buy this quarter.
That's the problem. The reps are not having the right level of coaching, where there might be, with the right coaching between the rep and the buyer and the right guidance with the buyer, you know, to help them jump a few hurdles or speed things up. For example, like building consensus with their peers. There may be a missing piece of insight that they need to unstick something with a colleague that's preventing the deal from moving forward. But then I think there is a gap between, or with the depth, the type of coaching that sales leaders can give those reps in order to coach them to more effectively coach the buyer. Instead, it's, we need the deal, we need it now, what are you going to do? Give them more money off.
There was a fantastic test that was done on children, I believe, a psychological test, where they break a cube of chocolate off a bar of chocolate and they put it on a plate in front of the child and they say, you can have this piece of chocolate now, or you can have the whole bar of chocolate in half an hour.
Sorry, say that again.
You can have the piece of chocolate now,
Yeah.
or you can have the whole bar in half an hour.
Okay.
And almost all of the children took the chocolate now.
Wow.
Because what they heard was, you get one piece of chocolate now, or lots of chocolate not now. Okay, so I'll have the one piece of chocolate now. And it strikes me that sales orgs are often predicated on the same thinking. You know, so I can sell you a little bit of something today, or I can sell you a whole load of stuff tomorrow. You've got to get the sale today. That's the objective, is to get the sale today. And until we break this line of thinking, then salespeople will never be able to do what they're best at, will they? Which is build relationships and create revenue.
And buyers will never get the solution they really need to solve their problem, because they end up buying things that aren't actually solving the problem that they started out with. You know, there's a whole conversation there around, you know, the fact that, and I think it was first identified with Challenger and then further looked at with the Challenger customer, where you know, building consensus is one of the most difficult things for a buyer to do. On the inside, it's you know, it's hard for a seller to really control the way that they can build influence with multiple stakeholders in a complex sales cycle. But the fact that you know, unless you're getting those people in a room, those people influencing the purchase decision in a room together, where you can have a conversation about what the original purchase criteria was, they're all going to give their view based on, bless you, Rob, they're all going to give their view based on their own mental map and their own objectives. And so you end up, you know, you end up with them making a decision that is perhaps, you know, one based on price or the solution that's good enough, as opposed to the solution that will actually solve the problem and get the company where they need to get to.
Yeah. I was just doing a little bit of a look into Randall Constant, who left a couple of comments. So used to be in B2B sales, then became an Amazon Live streamer. I didn't even know there was such a thing as Amazon Live streaming. Anyway, he's an Amazon Live streamer. And the nice thing about that is, because he's in the food and beverage industry, he doesn't have to wait to sell anything. You know, he can be doing a stream. He can say, you need one of these. Just click on the link below and people can buy it. So a very different structure, obviously, to B2B sales, but an interesting one nonetheless.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Bob.
So
you wanted to talk about sales in startups, didn't you, Rob?
Yes, thank you. I love the thought of talking about sales in startups, because what many people don't realize is, whereas with the established organization, the sales process has been the sales process for pretty much forever. And that's because the product has been the product for pretty much forever. With a startup generally has the founder as the first salesperson. And not only are they developing their sales process, they're often still developing their go-to-market messaging, and sometimes even the product itself. And by the time the founder is ready to bring in a sales team, the product that they've started with has iterated. The messaging has changed. The ideal customer profile may even be different. So why would you think that your go-to-market plan would then remain constant? When you bring in a sales team, the first thing that they need to do is to develop a process appropriate for the now new product and now new ideal customer profile. It's not as simple as, well, here's the stuff that I did. Why don't you go and do that? And that's your training. It's all about really building it from scratch all over again. And how many people come into a sales role and are capable of building from scratch?
Yeah.
There are those that can. There are many, however, that are more of the, just give me the book, tell me what to do, and I'll run with it. So the thought of sales in a startup is incredibly exciting to me, because I still see lots of greenfield ahead. Now, you both have worked for large organizations where the sales process has kind of been in place. Am I off base at all with that?
Large and small.
Okay.
Large and small.
Yeah, I mean, I much prefer working within the startup and small business environment, exactly because of that. You know, an established process, an established way of doing things, fundamentally doesn't allow for innovation, or minimizes the amount of innovation. It suffocates new ideas. And, you know, we see that time and time again with our current, I mean, your current rant at the moment, Alex, is about people measuring the wrong things. You know, you see it in some of the clients that you're coaching, where, you know, they're outperforming in terms of generating pipeline and having conversations, but they're being hauled over the coals because they're not making enough cold calls or sending enough emails. And it's like, well, you should be measuring outputs, not inputs. Doesn't matter how much stuff I have to do to achieve the same as you. What matters is the fact that you're achieving the same as me. You know, it's like anything which is the shortest route between 2 points must be a good thing to learn. And big businesses don't allow for this more often than not.
Yeah, I think there's so within the last 2 weeks, I've spoken to a company that employs 1,500 people. About 500 of them are in a revenue-facing role, and they're measuring the wrong things. When I say the wrong things, they're measuring things like you just said, cold calls, cold emails. Even if those emails are very tailored, they're not getting they're not getting the conversations that equal the pipeline that they need to grow at the rate they need to grow. Then I speak to a founder who's running a relatively small business. I think there's about 10 of them. They invested in a VP of sales, a big investment for them, or a sales director. And it became this crippling expense. And, you know, the founder was very surprised to hear that the VP of sales wanted to buy email lists to grow their pipeline. And surprise, surprise, that didn't work. But then, you know, so I think there are definitely some similarities with large or small companies in terms of measuring the things that really matter when it comes to creating meaningful business relationships that turn into pipeline. But then back to, I think, you know, Rob, I don't know if it was your point, Rob, or yours, Adam, but, you know, as I was thinking about the role of sales in a startup, must be very, very difficult for businesses to hire the right type of individual, because you need a hungry salesperson to go and get some revenue in the door quickly. Yet you also need someone that has almost chief revenue officer type experience to appreciate the importance of having that joined up message, you know, from sales to customer success and the board and support.
That's exactly it. I was actually having a conversation with somebody just before this show, and the conversation centered around hiring for the startup is particularly difficult because, as I alluded to, you need somebody that can come in and create from scratch. Yes, I know sales is supposed to be part art and part science, and everyone wants to see themselves as an artist, but at an established organization with an established sales process, there's very little art involved. There's very little variation. And when you're walking into a startup, if you're expecting all of the systems in place that you have at your large organization, all of the messaging, all of the various teams, oh, we just hand that off to account management. We hand that off to client success. No, you are all of those things. And when you hire somebody based on their track record of success at something that is diametrically opposed to your offer, ICP, so on, you're setting everyone up for failure. What you need to do, and this goes for hiring in general, but especially for a sales startup, you need to identify the traits and behaviors, the characteristics that would make somebody successful in that given role. And then you need to screen for those traits and characteristics throughout the interview process. I don't care that you've had a track record of President's Club for 10 years straight at Oracle. If you can't come in and talk to my SMB prospects, they don't match up. And too often I've worked with startups that fell for that shiny object syndrome. Oh, they were a sales rock star at their last place. Well, that's great, but then two questions come to mind. Is it the right fit here? And why are they leaving in the first place?
Yeah, I think just before we kind of dig into that I will sort of disagree with one part of what you said in relation
Please do.
in relation to salespeople in corporates not thinking sales is an art.
No, I believe they do think it's an art. I just question how much differentiation really is there.
Yeah, well, I do think the best reps, even in the largest companies, will be carving it out for themselves, and they're likely to be the top performers. Yeah,
absolutely agree, and that's the difference between making quota and crushing quota. Is being able to add that sense of differentiation. But I still contend that 95% of the process is standard. And by the process, I don't just mean your sales playbook. I mean the technology, the systems, the support teams, and all of the other elements that go into it. Everyone has access to the same account managers. Everyone has access to the same client success team. Everyone uses the same CRM. When you're walking into a startup, they're looking to you to figure out what the right CRM system might be, for example.
Yeah.
But I think also they're looking for people that are genuinely self-sufficient, aren't they?
Oh, most definitely.
Within a large corporate, there's always somebody that you can follow. Someone that's done this before, that's got a relationship in this company, whatever it may be. When you're working within a small business, you actually are stepping out into entirely virgin snow. There's nothing in front of you. How you choose to do it is ultimately up to you. Who you target, what you're targeting them, how you're targeting them, all of those things are normally within your control to a greater or lesser extent. And I think that one of the challenges that you have is that within a large organization, people can very easily become complacent. It's not my job to put together a sales deck. It's your job because you're in sales support marketing division. So it's your job to put together the follow. And actually, this is about people taking back control, isn't it? About saying, here's how I'm choosing to present myself and the product to this person that I'm trying to forge a commercial relationship with.
Yeah, I hate it when the job ad says we're looking for a salesperson that's self-sufficient, because that translated to me means you're on your own.
Yeah, but actually you're on your own anyway. That's the point. If you work within a big organization, you're on your own. If you don't make your number, you're out. Yes, we're going to give you this stuff, but often the stuff that you're given is not a help, it's a hindrance. Alex, what I need you to do is to make 150 cold calls a week. That's what I need you to do, because that's what generates well, it doesn't generate revenue. I'm not doing that. Well, you need to do that because that's part of what you're being paid to do. Well, no, we're putting the cart before the horse here. What I'm being paid to do is to bring revenue into the business. I can do it more effectively by doing it this way. That's not an option. These are the things you have to do. And actually, I would rather be on my own. I would rather somebody say to me at the end of the year, how much stuff have you sold? Hey, here's what I've sold. How much stuff have you got in pipeline? Here's what I've got in pipeline. Rather than somebody looking over my shoulder saying, no, click this button. Oh, no, put a mister in there. Oh, no, reword that email. Because that's what you get at most organizations these days, isn't it?
Don't forget the campaign code.
Oh, right. Yes, the campaign code. I forgot that. But, so much of this is stuff where the messaging has to be approved. The outreach has to be approved. At this point, you have to give them the brochure. You have to use the following deck. You have to have the following phrase. This is our sales play. Sales play? What are you talking about? No such thing as a sales play. And the reason there isn't is because you are unique. Your company is unique. What I'm going to do for you is unique. The relationship between you and I is unique. You can't legislate for that.
Yeah.
So if you hire good people, you should allow the people to be self-sufficient. If you hire people that are not good people, then you have to control every element of it. You have to legislate for the lowest common denominator. But that's an HR problem, isn't it?
But there's a difference between control and empowering. So, I am for an organization co-creating a sales strategy that is supporting the sales team, is providing them the guidance and the structure they need to then spread their wings and be the best that they can be. Not, here's the phone, here's your computer.
No, absolutely. And part of that empowerment needs to be understanding the levers that they can pull in the modern world.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the challenge is that the levers that you are being introduced to when you go to work at a large corporate, the levers you're being introduced to are levers that are no longer effective. So, what you need to do is, if you want more revenue, you just need to phone more people.
Yeah.
You just need to have a better intro to the hi, if I can just have 2 minutes of your oh, we got cut off. You need to those are the things that, and 40 years ago, that's true. We watched Wolf of Wall Street when he goes to that nasty little investment broker place in the out of town shopping center. And he's got everyone around him, and they hear him on the phone, and they just go, "Oh my God, that's amazing what you did there." And in those days, that was how it worked. When we all watch Wall Street, what we have is someone with a copy of the telephone directory just going through, going through, and it's constant rebuff after rebuff after rebuff. But now it's a different way that we have to prospect with people. And I think that yes, we mustn't just give someone a phone and a laptop and say, right, away you go and generate some sales. But what we do have to do is we have to give them far more freedom than, in my experience, the majority of large corporates are prepared to give someone.
Yeah.
We have to recognize that you breed Dachshunds, and for many people, that would be something that they'll have a conversation with you about.
Yeah.
Now, from a sales perspective, that's the point. The point is, I'm prepared to have a conversation, but it's not about business. I don't want to talk to you about your CRM system. I couldn't give two craps about your CRM system. I'm quite interested to hear about your dogs, though. Okay, now we've got the basis for having a conversation. And from the conversation, you've got some degree of control over where that conversation goes. And I think that most organizations, certainly the ones I've worked for, large organizations, if I said, I'm going to start to have conversations with people about my dogs, they would just go berserk.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is two things that we talked about today. Sales speak is bad, and we can spot it a mile away. And along those lines, the larger organizations that are selling and training sellers in the world of sales speak may be better off taking a page out of sales at startups, allowing more room for discovery, allowing more room for experimentation.
Humanization, or human, authentic, genuine relationship building.
Genuine relationship building. Is that your mic drop moment?
It's pretty good.
Could be, as we're out of time.
You want to wrap us up?
Happy to. So I think you've summarized that very well, Rob. Thank you. Thank you, Adam, Rob, for being wonderful panelists on SalesTV Americas. Thank you to the audience, to Randall and Jerry and several LinkedIn users, to Bob, who I think's left us, and Jackie. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Have a great week, and we will see you next week.
Bye all.